Instead of simply becoming quiet, the courtroom descended into WrestleMania mayhem. The judge was reading King Harris's sentence gently one moment. Ty sprang out of his chair, slammed the defensive table, and lunged directly toward the bench in the following second. Yes, you heard correctly. A courtroom was transformed into his own street brawl by the so-called King of the South. And the true question is this: would you remain silent? Or would you lose your temper if your kid was been given a jail sentence? Like Ty, did you attack the judge? Because of what transpired next, media scrambled, FBI agents ducked, and the jury pulling T.I. back in front of the whole gallery. The greater surprise, though, was that this went beyond a father's anger. According to insiders, T.I. was aware that King Harris's statement was just the beginning. Those compromised files, that phone, King is not only chained to the streets. Ty is the direct target of their accusations. There was no breakdown here. This was desperate. A real-life hip-hop icon witnessing the fall of his empire time. Put an end to the drama on Netflix. This is a combination of Power, Snowfall, and WWE. And that was just broadcast live to the globe. Although it began like any other anxious day in the courtroom, it quickly turned into the A moment that people will debate, repost, and repeat for years. Atlanta rap superstar King Harris's son. After months of being dragged through the news, Ty's fate was now set in stone. The judge's countenance was icy as he gave out the verdict from the bench. Decision that would alter everything. It was 5 years. Music is over. Videos. No more late-night live streaming. No more internet cockiness. 5 years of state-issued jumpsuits and jail bars. The audience let out a gasp. Journalists scrawled frantically, and King sagged back in his seat as if the world had ended. However, T got to his feet before anyone could comprehend it. His expression contorted in shock. Suddenly, he was no longer the dapper family guy wearing a high-end suit, and his hands clenched tightly. He remained the same. Flaming street bread vendor who once blew up after wrapping up a story about power and survival. According to witnesses, he smashed. The microphone squealed as he pressed his hand down on the table. He said, "You can't do this to my son," his voice reverberating across the courtroom. Before the judge could reply, T rushed over to the bench. People stopped. Was this really happening? A Grammy-winning performer, a celebrity, a cultural figure, now causing mayhem in a courtroom. Though they arrived seconds too late, the Beffs hurried in. Ty's finger was just inches from the judge's face as he leaned over the bench. You believe this to be justice if you can put my kid in jail and get away with it?" It roared. Some claimed to have witnessed the judge wince. According to some, the judge grinned, being aware that this moment would be permanently recorded in history and that the cameras were rolling. T.I. was stopped by security before he may cause further harm, but the harm has already been done. The video was released almost immediately. In less than an hour, one Twitter video received 1 million views. Edits from TikTok appeared with dramatic subtitles, similar to when Being Honest backfires. Instagram was flooded with memes that compared T.I. to a WWE wrestler jumping into the ring. In a matter of hours, hashtags such as Dawn Courtroom Pandemonium and .TIV's Judge were popular all around the world. However, here is where it becomes darker. This was more than simply an angry outburst, according to insiders. As stated by T.I. knew that something damaging was going to come to light because of the courthouse staff's rumors. Prosecutors apparently suggested during the sentence that fresh evidence connected Ty and King were both involved in the narcotics and firearms trafficking that the FBI had been investigating for months. This wasn't fury. A reporter was informed by an unnamed source. Panic was in the air. He was aware of the walls were closing in. Consider it. T.I. has previously gotten into trouble with the law. It's not simply music on his rap sheet. There are several federal cases, probation infractions, and well-known arrests. Recall that he was apprehended attempting to purchase machine weapons in 2007, only hours before his performance at the BET Awards for Hip-Hop. His career almost ended because of that controversy. Nevertheless, here he was, observing the recurrence of history over 20 years later. However, his son was now in the hot seat, and perhaps he's back on the radar. Debate among fans is unabated. Was this a father's? Is love blowing up in the most visible way? Or did this guilty man find a reflection of himself in his son's collapse? Because King Harris received more than a simple sentence. He served like a mirror, reflecting. This is precisely what occurs when you combine celebrity, ego, and the streets. Ironically, Tia had been alerting King to years before this day arrived. Let's go back. T.I. launched back in 2022 on Instagram, following King's notorious tantrum at Waffle House. Do you recall the King who yelled at the chefs who were serving food, harassing employees and showing off money while someone was filming the entire catastrophe? Tia appeared worn out as he spoke to the fans. Time will be his teacher, I told him. He claimed to have gotten to discover the hard way. People believed T was being too severe at the time. However, considering the punishment for today, it seems prophetic. He foresaw the collapse, and now that it has occurred, he's the one melting down. Not only did the commotion in the courtroom reveal T's fury, but it also revealed his empire. According to insiders, prosecutors have been investigating for months in an effort to develop a case that goes beyond King's careless actions. Investigators allegedly found financial documents that suggested T.I. could have provided funding for some of King's more dubious endeavors. False companies, extravagant spending binges, and money coming in and going out without any apparent reason. Additionally, when the FBI smelled King's phone, they heard more than just his voice. According to sources, discussions concerning firearms included references to my father's, bargains and late-night excursions. Picture yourself sitting in the judge's chair, reading a son's prison sentence, and then looking into the enraged gaze of a potentially guilty parent. It is more than simply a courtroom. It's a movie set. It's a hip-hop-infused Shakespearean tragedy. Online, supporters and detractors engaged in combat outside the courts. This ain't power. One tweet that went viral said, "This is not BMF and it is not Snowfall. Actual world. In the trial, T just became a ghost." Another person stated, "The FBI didn't even need to speak. Tia simply snitched on himself by reacting like that." In the meantime, ardent fans stood up for him like any true parent would. One follower said, "If you don't understand what it's like to lose a child, don't discuss family." However, even those who were sympathetic had to acknowledge that T.I. had gone too far. A judge being attacked isn't simply poor visuals. The offense is contempt of court. It's an attack. Also, it's the type of error that endures forever. The follow-up is already extensive. Within 24 headlines like T.I. implodes, courtroom drama, and Harris family in freefall were all over gossip blogs for hours. TMZ-style footage that never stopped playing YouTube that breaks down every aspect with comments. Was his yell practiced? Did King signal him? Was there a larger strategy behind this? The hypotheses accumulated, quicker than the sights. However, it is evident that this was not a lone explosion. This was the culmination of years of strain. A father holding on, a kid seeking influence and mayhem his business, as well as a legal system that disregards rap royalty. This was bound to happen. The main storm hasn't even begun yet, if the rumors are accurate. Because the courthouse claims insiders, the FBI has yet to release a folder of evidence. Documents connected to King's phone, financial activities, and discussions that can push T farther into the flames. Despite the dramatic nature of the judge's outburst, it could have been desperation as well. A man who is aware of the truth is going to be buried. When security took Ty out of the courtroom, the mayhem inside continued. If anything, it just intensified. Every possible angle was being recorded by phones, and in a matter of minutes, the video showed T.I. lunging for the judge. Spread like a wildfire. Videos featuring dramatic subtitles, such as Atlanta's court turning into a UFC arena and a rapper versus judging contest. Boxing commentary was spliced into the footage by fans, who also added slow-motion replays of T.I. pointing in while the judge was being wrestled back by the baifs. It was widely consumed on the internet, yet behind the memes, the stakes were really high. Because the kicker is here, the prosecutors didn't flinch. If anything, they appeared arrogant. Furthermore, why wouldn't they? They were aware of this. Outburst simply provided them with leverage. It is okay to have an emotional breakdown in court. A judge being assaulted is a whole other level of problems. Additionally, if you believe the FBI wasn't paying attention, reconsider. Word got out that security film had previously been subpoenaed by agents, not only from the courtroom, but also from T's home, recording sessions, and studios. They seemed to have been waiting for this explosion, awaiting confirmation from live broadcasts in which the media recorded a series of warning signs, like breadcrumbs, ranging from music videos showing off firearms to violent altercations at Waffle House that went viral. King, however, leaned more into the picture rather than changing direction. He desired to be seen as outside and untouchable. Furthermore, Ty was unable to halt the spiral despite his several lectures. The irony is cruel. T.I. once established himself as the man who defeated the system and returned stronger, the reformed hustler. His own mug photographs were shown on the news, and he had his own run-ins with federal officials. However, he utilized that tale to recast himself as a mentor, a family guy, and a businessman. The brand was that, and that brand is now in danger of being torn apart by his son's failure. The turmoil in the courtroom wasn't limited to a parent protecting his son. It was the devastation of the internet and years of well-cultivated trustworthiness. Oh, how cruel the internet was. One tweet that went viral encapsulated it. Ty attempted to transform his family business into a courtroom business. Didn't work out. Another went much farther. Trap music gave way to being stuck in court. Poetic fairness. The undertone remained evident despite the deluge of memes. Blood was odorous. There's no going back once the internet smells blood. Bloggers and purported insiders started leaking information behind the scenes. Shocking revelations. Text messages supposedly displaying furious arguments were shared by an unnamed individual who claimed to be close to the Harris family. King and T argued weeks prior to the sentence. King accused his father in such texts with keeping the streets filthy while maintaining a clean image for the cameras. It made little difference if the passages were authentic or not. They were believed by the internet. Compared to fact checks, screenshots circulate more quickly. And suddenly, the story was about more than simply a father's fury. A father and son were split up, with one revealing the other, all under the FBI's merciless scrutiny. Then the video appeared. Recall the phone King was allegedly handed up to the federal government, the one that the prosecutors alluded to? Leaks claim that the phone was filled with video recordings of late-night studio sessions, money transactions, and discussions that depicted something far more sinister. King was purportedly in a poorly lit room in the most damaging video. "This ain't even mine. Pop's keeping us loaded," he said, pointing to a revolver while surrounded by colleagues. Whether it was spoken in jest or out of rage, that one statement had the power of a nuclear weapon. The response was immediate. News sites included headlines such as, "Did T support his son's wild lifestyle?" and "King Harris points to father in disturbing clip." Comments were swamped by fans, some of whom defended Ty. Others accuse him of entangling his kid in the same cycle from which he previously broke free. According to one YouTube commenter, "This is BMF all over again. A parent attempting to construct an empire, then the son blows it up." But hold on, things get messier. In rumor circulated in the days following the courtroom uproar that King's sentencing judge had been the target of anonymous threats. He received letters, emails, and voicemails cautioning him to distance himself from the Harris family. No one could demonstrate where they originated, but conspiracy theorists stepped right in. Some said it was ardent T.I. supporters. Others said it had something to do with street crews in Atlanta who were devoted to the Harris name. In any case, it depicted a heritage that was getting out of hand. Fame, music, and now the leaking of criminal suspicion into anything hazardous. Additionally, the Harris family was publicly disintegrating. The wife of Tiny Ty was seen departing the courtroom in tears, not responding to reporters' inquiries. On social media, King's siblings remained mute, closing comments after receiving a ton of trolls. King himself, meanwhile, made an odd declaration. From a prison. Half defiance, half apology. "I took the necessary action. Pops is aware of the reality. You guys don't. Only 10 words, but plenty to cause a flurry on the internet. Consider that. 10. Words that don't sound so much like a defense as they do like a confession. What is the truth? What secrets? And did T.I. lose so badly in court because of those secrets? Because the commotion in the courtroom was about more than simply a kid receiving a punishment if King had proof linking his father to illicit activities. It concerned the fall of a dynasty due to its own weight. Prosecutors were already circling in the meanwhile. They reportedly submitted motions to examine T.I.'s 3-year financial records. Nothing was off bounds, including side dealings, business accounts, and music royalties. And you know what came to the surface? Large cash withdrawals, extravagant cash expenditures, and mysterious deposits that didn't match his declared income. On paper, it appeared to be just a famous person wasting his riches. However, from the FBI's perspective, it appeared to be money laundering. And this is when the situation becomes nasty. According to unnamed insiders, the phone that was leaked. The video wasn't the only shocking revelation. Other well-known figures in the Atlanta scene were allegedly implicated via voice notes and text messages as well. All of a sudden, it was more than just T and King. It concerned a possible cascading impact that may cause the entire business to tremble. Careers might be destroyed in an instant if such files are ever seen. The drama had the audience riveted. Fans have their alerts set to get every new headline. Every frame of the courtroom video was examined by commentators as if it were the Zapruder movie. Rival rappers even weighed in, with some expressing compassion and others making fun of T.I. A single virus. Despite everything, one thing stood out in a rival's Instagram post. The streets don't forgive, not even for legends. It became horribly obvious. T.I.'s tantrum wasn't an isolated incident. It was the sign of a more serious illness. A family torn apart by the same streets after being challenged by ego and built on fame. They were once victorious. The climax was not in the courtroom. It was only the beginning of the slide because, according to a courthouse employee, the judge leaned over his microphone after T.I. was carried out and the pandemonium subsided, and spoke something icy. Mr. Harris is gravely incorrect if he believes that today was his worst day. Although the statement was not included in the official transcript, it circulated online like a prophecy. And if history is any indication, such omens are rarely wrong. When the hearing's second day arrived, the Harris name wasn't "it was radioactive," and it was simply trending. The courthouse was covered by cameras from every news station. Every fan was waiting to see if T.I. would even reveal his face following his violent outburst. And every site was concocting fresh hypotheses. And the audience outside almost went crazy when he eventually showed up. He wasn't in an ostentatious designer outfit this time. Not even his trademark swagger was on his feet. T seemed exhausted, as though he were bearing the burden of a collapsing kingdom. However, the judge wasn't finished using him as an example. According to witnesses, the judge addressed the entire courtroom to begin the hearing. Please be advised that threats or outbursts from celebrities will not be tolerated by this court. The term slicing across the space. T was sitting there looking stony-faced, but his tightened jaw gave take him out. He had never been called out like that before. Nor in front of others, nor with the cameras are rolling. But here he was, surrounded, exposed, and helpless. Behind prosecutors were disclosing just enough details about the scenes to maintain the media craze. Unnamed sources alluded to FBI documents that were piled on King's phone and mentioned night meetings and family operations. A few video purportedly shown high-end vehicles arriving at warehouses at strange hours, as background people mentioned tips by name. No one could verify if it was genuine or doctored. Yet the outcome remained unchanged. The public was persuaded. Ty wasn't simply a dad being mad at his kid. He was a monarch trapped in his own deteriorating fortress. Additionally, the internet was savage. TikTok edits appeared, splicing together Ty's previous interviews in which he advocated for responsibility, with videos of him being hauled like a thug out of court. He was referred to as the courtroom thug, Judge Dredd, and the enraged dad. With a widely shared comedy that depicted a phony judge hiding beneath the bench, comedians even joined the craze. The turmoil was no longer just news, as a T.I. imitation yelled, "You can't sentence my boy." The thing that hurt the most was that it was entertainment. However, amid all the cacophony, the Harris family was exploding. According to rumors, Tiny pleaded with Ty to take a back seat and refrain from attending court before, for real, he got himself arrested. King allegedly chuckled while inside after learning of his father's breakdown, claiming that he now understands how it feels. As your kingdom burns, see your own son making fun of you. That resentment strengthened the argument that there was more to this than criminality. It has to do with treachery, a family disintegrating in public, a father losing control, and a son betraying his father. The last blow occurred late that evening when an anonymous leak appeared on the blogs. The hazy footage was purportedly taken from King's phone, displaying what seemed to be a botched